Good morning. My name is Nick Plott, and I'm with Tampa Electric and Peoples Gas, and I'm the chair of the Greater Winter Haven Chamber of Commerce Advocacy Committee. And it is my pleasure to welcome you this morning to our City Commission Candidates Forum. It is a primary goal of the Chamber of Commerce to advocate on behalf of the business community. The Advocacy Committee reviews issues facing our community at the local and state level and works with elected officials and private businesses to ensure your interests, livelihood, and quality of life are protected and enhanced. A large part of our responsibility is to inform our community about issues that may affect them, hence why you all zoomed in this morning. We hope that you'll find this morning informative, and we would like to thank both of the candidates for their willingness to participate and potentially serve our community public servant. And honestly, truly thank you both to Commissioner Powell and Mr. Crowley. We can't do anything in this city without involved and engaged citizens, so thank you for stepping up to that call. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this morning's forum, our very own Chamber President and CEO, Katie Worthington Decker. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you so much, Nick. And I would also like to recognize that this candidate forum is a part of our Coffee and Conversation monthly series, and that series is made possible with the generous support of two sponsors, Tinsley Family Concessions and Polston Insurance Agency with Lynn Polston, one of our chamber ambassadors. So I do want to thank those two businesses for helping us make this monthly series possible. So to be very conscious of your time this morning, we will get right down to business. So before I introduce our candidates, I want to go over the agenda for this morning and a few ground rules. So when we begin, each candidate will have an opportunity to give a 3-minute opening statement. My team is on the line with me and we'll be keeping time. And so if we do go beyond or get near those 3 minutes, I may need to interrupt. So please do not take any offense to that. We want to ensure everyone gets equal opportunity to share their thoughts this morning. After the opening statements, I will ask several questions that you will each answer, and you will have 3 minutes to answer those questions as well. After the prepared questions, we will open it up to audience questions. And so audience, just a little housekeeping for you. You have a Q&A feature on your screen. That Q&A feature allows you to submit questions to the forum. Please be aware that that will be viewed by all, but not just me, but by the panelists as well. And so make sure you understand that anyone will be able to see those questions. If the question is for a specific candidate, please be sure to indicate that in your question so we know who we're asking that question to. If there are multiple questions submitted that have a similar theme, please don't be offended if I don't read your question verbatim, as we will, in the spirit of time, make sure that we ask similar themed questions together. If you prefer not to submit your questions via the Q&A, but would still like to ask a question, you can email your question to info@winterhavenchamber.com, and I will try to keep an eye on that as well to ask your question. And we have had some audience members pre-submit some questions as well. So that email address is info@winterhavenchamber.com. We'll be recording this session, and so we will be putting this up later on our YouTube channel as well as our social media channels to make sure that people beyond those signed on to the call this morning will be able to learn more about the candidates running for office. We also asked both candidates to fill out a candidate questionnaire, and those will also be put up on the Winter Haven Chamber blog. So you'll be able to read more from those candidates on the blog. And finally, and all of you on this call know this, but at the chamber, we don't always have to agree, but we will always respect each other. And so there will be no disrespect this morning to anyone on the call. We are all logged in this morning because we love Winter Haven, and let's certainly remember that. I would also like to recognize there is actually another seat that is up for election right now, Mayor Brad Danzler's seat. He is running unopposed, and so we do want to thank him for his service as well and his willingness to step up again to serve the people of the Winter Haven community. So I'm not going to read their bios because we certainly want to give our candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves to you in their own words. So I am pleased to welcome today our incumbent candidate, Commissioner J.P. Powell, and the challenging candidate, Matthew Crowley. And so we will start this morning in alphabetical order. So Matthew, we will start with you. If you would like to have your 3 minutes to give your opening statement, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you believe qualifies you to run.
Absolutely. And thank you, Katie, for having me on. Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Crowley, and I'm running for seat 5 for the Winter Haven City Commission. I'm running on the simple concept that you know how to run your life better than the government. That by getting government out of the way, you can build a better Winter Haven. I do not come from a political background. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a real estate agent, nor do I come from a prestigious family with money. But what I do have is hard work. I have my bills paid on time every single month. And I set my course by planning to open my business here in a couple years. This is the voice that we need in our local government. This is the voice of the common person. And as for why I feel like I'm best to serve on the commission, is because I've lived in this city my entire life. I've watched my city's government continue to grow and take more and more from the lower and middle class citizens. I come from a family that had to work hard every single day to put food on the table and pay bills. And that work ethic was passed down to me. And I feel like that voice of the normal person, which is what I am, is missing from the commission. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Powell.
Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, Katie, thank you and the chamber for hosting this forum this morning. It's always a pleasure to be able to meet officials with the chamber and to be able to greet our citizens. I was first elected to the city commission in 2007. I was on the commission until 2015. And while I was on there for those several years, I was mayor pro tem from 2009 to 2011. Then I was the mayor of our great city from 2011 to 2013. I'm a past president of the Ridge League of Cities, which is an organization that the city is involved in. Past president of the Winter Haven Rotary Club, past president of the Winter Haven Optimist Club, former lieutenant governor for Zone 6 in North Florida District. And I was on the Winter Haven Code Enforcement Board for a number of years, and I was on the Planning Commission as well as chairman for several years. I'm on the Airport Advisory Committee and also involved with Main Street Winter Haven as well as the chamber. And so having previous experience with the city commission and being involved in all the organizations, I feel that it's given me experience from the past as well as going into the future. Winter Haven has grown to just under 50,000 citizens, and our number one importance and goal is to make sure that it's a secure place to live. But I look forward to serving another term if the citizens will allow me, and I've known Matthew for many years, and so I've known his family, but I appreciate the time this morning and look forward to the rest of the session.
Thank you both so much for those opening statements. So you've touched on it a little bit within what you've said, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into the personal reasons and your platform for running. And so really to focus on what your platform is for running. So JP, I'm going to start with you this morning on that question. Explain to the listeners what is the main 3 to 5 points of your campaign platform?
Number one is to keep Winter Haven safe and secure and a great place to live, work, and play, and to learn, and to promote a high quality of business environment to provide high paying job creation, plan future infrastructure investments to help attract manufacturing, finance, and insurance information technology, global logistics and trade industries, and work with the state and county governments to provide financial assistance in these areas. and to continue to improve our recreational facilities for all citizens in the city.
Thank you. Matthew?
Thank you. My entire platform comes from the fact that, you know, my family hasn't had a lot, and my family had a budget growing up. We had to make cuts, we had to make decisions, and my campaign platform really does come from that. I feel that you know how to use your money the best. So my campaign platform starts off lowering taxes. This right here is the number one thing that I am running on, is lowering taxes, because I feel like you know how to use your money best. You know how to invest your money better than I do. And I want to see money put back in the pockets of the citizens of Winter Haven. Number two is lowering spending. Just this year, we've seen a 21% increase in our city budget from 144 million to 182 million. That is a massive increase in spending. And I just want to see that more managed or more controlled. Number three is a term that you never hear from politicians, but it's the term job liberation. I use that term over job creation, because I believe that government cannot create jobs. It is the citizens that create jobs. It is individuals that create jobs. And by making it easier for those citizens and for those entrepreneurs to create jobs, we can have a better city here in Central Florida. Thank you very much.
So JP, I want to give an opportunity for you to respond to some of the comments that are made, and we will have opportunities with this a little bit in between, because it's a conversation as well as a forum. So when it comes to the city and the city budget, talk a little bit about how that process has worked in your experience.
Well, our city manager, his main focus, or his main job, is to present a balanced budget, which he has. And even though the budget has increased, we have a number of projects. In fact, I have in front of me the proposed budget highlights, and which is available online. And the $182 million has a number of projects involved. And you have to be able to, with our city increasingly growing by the number of citizens, you have to provide public safety. And we have to hire additional police officers. We have to hire additional firefighters. We have in our budget proposed to build 2 new fire stations. We just finished up fire station number 3. And out of the budget also includes more funding for parks and recreation, and you have a structure, a utility system. It's like the rest of us, it's old, and you have to keep maintaining the utilities, because people want to go turn their water faucet on, they want to have water. And some of these old pipes are galvanized pipes, and they're old, and it takes money to maintain a utility system. And it takes money and time and employees to be able to keep up with with an aging system. And so that's included in our budget too. So you have to spend money to keep up your utilities. If you have to put a new roof on your house, you're not going to wait until it's leaking to have a new roof put on your house. If somebody tells you need to have a new roof on, we're coming to the end of hurricane season. Thank good Lord we haven't had any major storms, but you want to keep your house in order, and you want to keep it maintained.
So Matthew, I'll say this question to you. So as both of you are well aware, the Lakeland Winter Haven Metropolitan Statistical Area is the second fastest growing community in the country behind Austin, Texas, which people, when you say that, their eyes get really big. A lot of that growth is happening in East Polk County. Certainly Lakeland is growing as well, but when you look statistically, Winter Haven has grown by 45% from the 2010 census to the 2020 census. With that growth trajectory, Florida is a great place to live. You know, you don't have to go through so many winters up north before you realize that Florida is where it's at, right? So, and I hear that a lot because at the chamber, we send out the relocation guides. So we hear that a lot here at the chamber. You have to plan for that growth. And that is something that, you know, we could all be critical of forefathers 30, 40, 50 years ago in planning for that growth. But it's the people that are sitting in the seats right now that have to prepare and plan for that growth. So if you were commissioner, Matthew, how would you handle your goals of lowering the budget, but also preparing for that growth?
Absolutely. And, you know, nobody is sitting there and saying that we should not maintain our city. That is vastly important. You know, one of the other policy positions that I run on is not only park maintenance, but city maintenance as well, because we all know Winter Haven's old. It's getting old. Its infrastructure is getting old. And we can just see that in one of our most visible forms is in our roads. And nobody's sitting here and saying that, you know, we should just cut all infrastructure and whatnot. What I'm talking about, controlled spending. We need to maintain and work towards getting our infrastructure in the place that it needs to be first, before we take on really big new projects. Because if we cannot maintain what we already have, how can we sit there and maintain new projects whenever they're done? That is what I'm saying, and that is really what I want to tackle in spending and the budget. Is if we are going to do projects, we need to have a fix it first mentality here in our city. You know, the main area of the budget that I have a problem with is all of these brand new parks and whatnot. That is really what I feel is wasteful spending. While it is an investment in the city, it is also a much better investment to maintain the parks, the 30 plus parks that we already have, and sitting there and fixing our roads and repiping the city. All of that is important, and all of that should come first. So that is really what I'm saying by lowering, or not just lowering, but controlling the spending and whatnot.
Thank you. So JP, a lot of the projects, and for those individuals on this call, if you check out the Winter Haven Chamber blog, I just actually made a post this week about some of the projects and try to keep our citizens up to date on those. You know, of the capital improvement projects that are in the budget moving forward, there are two very large public safety. So from the growth of the community, you have 2 fire stations. And one of the things that I think is unique is through the COVID experience, because of being able to keep firefighters and police officers somewhat spread out to prevent an impact on our workforce, they were almost able to test out this concept of whether they would need fire stations or public safety departments in various areas of the city. And that was certainly proven through that time period of being able to create better levels of service by creating these other pockets of public safety. So 2 large projects are 2 public safety stations that are within that. Some of the Parks and Rec projects are hitting areas of this community that have not had that kind of investment before. Why do you believe that the quality of life projects are also important to the community?
Quality of life is very important. As you said, the 2 stations, we learned during the COVID, the pandemic, that having substations throughout the city has saved time and response times. And when you're doing medical calls, mostly time is of the essence. And having those, and not having all of our employees under one house. I mean, if you, for instance, in Station 1, if you have one employee that is affected by the COVID-19, that affects the entire shift. So by placing other stations strategically throughout the city, we have learned that we do need other stations. So we did put that. As far as new parks, it's very important. You go out to the southeast area, the city has no parks out in that area. And that's where part of our biggest growth is out in the southeast area. And you have to provide areas to be able to let the younger citizens, we're trying to keep them involved, so to keep them off the streets, but in the parks and being able to enjoy amenities. And just for instance, Lake Maud Park over in the northeast section, we finished phase 1, and now we're going to move on and do phase 2, and which was planned a long time ago. And you've got to plan for the future, which we have. Our city manager, Mike Kerr, has done a great job in planning for the future, and we continue to move forward.
So I'm going to move on to some other questions that will kind of weave in some of what we've talked about. As we talked about, Winter Haven is growing incredibly fast, and that trajectory for the state of Florida overall is truly projected to continue. I want to start with you, Matthew, on this question. What do you believe are the greatest opportunities that Winter Haven has at this moment in time?
And thank you. You've stated it multiple times. The number one opportunity right here in our city is the fact that it's growing larger and faster than every other area in our state and almost every other area in our whole country. You know, we need to take advantage of this. We need to make it as attractive as possible to get people here. And I believe that by lowering taxes and by making it as easy as possible to start a business, this will skyrocket Winter Haven, and it will make it almost as attractive as Austin, Texas. I believe it's already as attractive as Austin, Texas to begin with, but I'm a little biased. Yeah, the number one opportunity facing Winter Haven is this continued growth. And I think we should take advantage of that as much as possible.
Follow-up question to that. Making it attractive as possible. So one of the trends that we're seeing across the country in business is a lot of companies, again, a result of COVID, have created more flexible work environments for their workers. And so realistically, a lot of companies, depending on what your position is, has an opportunity for you to live wherever in the country you want to live and work from home. And so as people of any age, I don't care if you're on the boomer side of your career or if you're on the younger side of your career, are able to relocate to a place where they feel like they have the best quality of life. So as a commissioner, Matthew, what do you believe the things that the commission should be looking at to ensure that we can attract people from a quality of life perspective?
Right. And, you know, going back to the quality of life perspective and what we need to do in order to, mostly for the number one people moving here are younger families. You know, you'll always have your snowbirds that are coming down that want to live here in their retirement. It's the reason why our city was named Winter Haven. A big sector that's coming down are young families. And like in my policy proposals and whatnot, and what I want to do is park maintenance, you know, reinvesting the money that we receive from taxpayers back into existing parks by updating equipment, by cleaning up the trash, by repaving existing trails. You know, the number one thing that I have seen, you know, since I've been on the campaign trail since January, the number one example is Lake Maud Nature Trail. I went out there a couple times and, you know, I would never want to go back. You know, the trash and the equipment And at the time, there wasn't even a toilet seat on the toilet. I want to reinvest our money back into those parks so that way it is a quality of life improvement already by sitting there and having better parks that we already own and we already maintain. So that's really what I would want to push for.
Oops, muted. JP, I'll throw the same question to you. As a commissioner, knowing that people can move wherever they want to move in the country, and we want to have Winter Haven be a place where people, whether they are getting a job here, which certainly is a goal to create more job opportunity in our community, or whether they're choosing to live here and work from home. What do you believe that commission can do going forward to create the right environment for that?
As I said previously, the southeast section of Winter Haven is one of the fastest growing quadrants in our city. We have no parks out there. We have to put new parks out there. When we built the new fire station, not only did we include a new dog park, which a lot of people in the past have requested, is we've included also a new playground. And that's pretty close to completion, if I'm not mistaken. And, a number of years ago, we invested in the trailhead park there behind the old city hall. And we just recently had to close it down to replace the equipment. So, and then you're talking several $100,000 to replace playground equipment. It's not cheap. And you've got to maintain the current parks. And that's one of the things that when we put new parks in, which is you've got to make it as attractive as possible for families coming into the area. And you have to show them that you're willing to invest in new parts of new areas that's growing. And you just have to make it attractive. And to do that, you have to have money to do that. It doesn't grow on the tree in the backyard, although that would be nice. But you have to continue to put money into new parks to make it attractive for businesses. Because when businesses come in to look, they also want to look to see what else the city has to offer other than just bringing a business in. And we want to make those attractive as possible. Those families, let them know that we're willing to invest in putting new parks and stuff in and to keep it maintained.
Mm-hmm. And in the capital improvement project right now, there are, just for the benefit of the audience that may not have seen the news, in the capital improvement project, last year was the renovation of the Trailhead Park. There is the renovation of the Winter Haven Recreation and Cultural Center, which has been on the to-do list for a number of years for the Florence Villa community in Northeast Winter Haven. One of the neat things, I think something that really puts the city of Winter Haven apart, and this is collectively, commission, staff, everyone, is they're constantly looking at ways to create a greater return on investment for the citizens by looking for funding resources outside of the general city budget. A good example of that would be on Monday morning when the state came down and cut a check for $9.4 million for infrastructure improvements. I believe the Lake Silver Drive road improvement project, the Public Works team was able to put in a grant for that, and it actually isn't costing the citizens of Winter Haven anything, if not for a very, very small percentage. The Airport Advisory Committee, for example, the FAA pays for the vast majority, 80 to 90% of those projects that are happening out at the airport. How do you think that, and I'll open this question up for both of you, and I'll start with you, JP, and then I'll go to Matthew. How do you think that the city can continue to move forward by leveraging state, federal, regional partners to help provide resources to the citizens of Winter Haven?
We have a great relationship with the FAA and the Florida DOT and our representatives up in Tallahassee. We have great representation there, and we have looked to them for assistance in the past, and money was very evident that we were able to receive the $9.4 million. But we have a lot of things. Our staff, our economic development corporation, Bruce Lyons and his group have been out feverishly trying to bring in new companies, which we've got new companies that's very out at the ILC. The Florida Can Manufacturing, Coca-Cola's investing in our city out there, and we just have a lot of things that are happening, but we have to continue to try to reach out to find outside funding, and our staff is great at doing that. We've got some great people on staff that knows how to do that.
Matthew?
Absolutely, we should be looking for outside funding sources so that way we don't have to tax our citizens more. I think that's very important. And if I said anything to the contrary, it would sit there and, kind of nullify what I've been standing on. We need to not only look at our state, local, and regional partners, we also need to look at nonprofits within the city itself in order for, one of the things that a number of people have said is the homeless situation here in the city. I don't believe that governments can effectively solve that crisis, but by partnering with nonprofits that are specifically designed in order to address that issue, we have a number of them here in the city. We can better and more effectively sit there and help the people that need help. And, big government all-in-one solutions aren't the best. They rarely ever work. So by working on these issues, not within government, but looking to partner with those outside of government, I feel like we should really take the opportunity there as well.
Commissioner Powell, how have you, or what is your philosophy on community partnerships? And have you had any experience with leveraging those over your time on the commission?
Community partnerships is very important. We have a number of outside partners. We have the 610 Corporation that has invested millions and millions and millions of dollars into our downtown area. They have been a great partner to work with. And we continue to work with them to bring in new businesses and to fix up our buildings downtown. Prime example is they're going to be building a partnership with a company out of St. Pete to build a new hotel downtown. And in fact, we have 2 new hotels going to be going in downtown, which will help bring in to help with the Ritz and hopefully bring the Ritz back up to where it used to be. But outside partnerships is very, very important, and we've been very involved with helping bring in 610.
And specifically, when it comes to partnerships with the community, and whether JP or Matthew would like to answer this question on how you viewed. So for example, Matthew, you mentioned homelessness in particular as an issue. That is a very multifaceted issue, obviously, and has many, many layers to that particular issue. One of those that the city has focused on over the last several years is students. So when you have a very large issue, you have to tend to take kind of one bite of the apple at a time, right? You have to try to chip away at those things. Commissioner Powell, your time on the commission has entered into several partnerships in that vein. And could you explain a little bit about those existing partnerships that are already in place, and then the opportunities with affordable housing that the commission has been working on going forward?
We just approved a $1.5 million trust fund that's going to be added to every year. And we have a goal of building 100 plus affordable homes. And the Peace Organization was very instrumental in helping us make those decisions. We brought in the State Housing Initiative group that went through and met with area people and came up with several recommendations, and the commission's approved all those recommendations to help our homelessness. And so we have to do whatever we have to do continue to make sure that we have our homelessness. Because you go, and this is just not a Winter Haven problem. And it's not just a Polk County or a state problem. It's a country problem. And everywhere you go, you see homelessness people in it, and it's a shame. And but we have to do what we have to do to try to help them out as much as possible.
Matthew, do you see any opportunities with existing partnerships as well, or as you bring up nonprofits that you would like to see happen in terms of partnerships?
Absolutely. Whenever it comes in terms of nonprofits, we have great nonprofits here in our city, from the Salvation Army to Heart of Winter Haven to the Mission. We need to be reaching out to these nonprofits because, like you said, we have to take bites of the apple one at a time. And these different nonprofits, they handle different bites of that apple. And by working with them, hopefully, this is hopefully, we can take on multiple areas at a time. And, just recently, the Heart of Winter Haven and students, they just opened the scholarship house, and I was at that ribbon cutting, and that was fantastic. I want to see more of that in the city, and I want to see the city of Winter Haven take a proactive solution towards these problems. And that's one way that we can do it, is by partnering with these nonprofits, because they're already doing amazing work, with the scholarship house and whatnot. I feel that just with the extra advertising and, with a little bit of the city resources, we can sit there and really hit home with this, because they're already doing amazing work. We should continue and push them to do more work.
Katie,
JP, go ahead, sir.
If I can just add one thing. We just approved 20 plus nonprofit organizations where the city, they requested funds from the city to help them. And we just approved $350,000 to be going out to all the various organizations that applied. So we are engaged in helping nonprofits.
Well, and Matthew, you mentioned Heart for Winter Haven, specifically Salvation Army and Tri-County Human Services, for example. So 2 examples in that arena. The city of Winter Haven partnered with Heart for Winter Haven to fund research regarding student homelessness in the community of Winter Haven, which was a platform for a lot of this discussion surrounding affordable housing. The scholarship house actually was a direct result of that partnership in the hard work of Brad Beatty and many of the partners and many chamber members that got involved in that process as well. So that's one example highlighting that. There's also an example of the city submitting an application to the state and federal governments for potential acquisition of a building down by Inman Park. That could be a collaborative effort between Heart for Winter Haven, Tri-County Human Services, and the Salvation Army. So that thought process around collaboration, I think, is, we call it our secret sauce here in Winter Haven. Everything is done better when it's done together, and being able to do all of those things together. And I think we have had a lot of success with that, and we'll have more success with that going forward. As an outsider, there's a lot of opportunities for us to continue to do that. I want to pivot to a moment for a topic that may not be as sexy as everything else we've talked about, but is vitally important to the future of our community, and that is water. The city of Winter Haven has become truly, and I go to a lot of meetings on water, which may not sound exciting, but is exciting if you're involved in community development. And the city of Winter Haven has become a leader across the state in discussing innovative ways to help communities retain water, to be a part of the discussion for the quality and quantity of water. And so I want to open this question up to you two. As we move forward, the city of Winter Haven is in the middle of a water strategic planning process called One Water. What would you like to see come out of that discussion regarding water? And what do you see in the future for Winter Haven over the next 20 years when it comes to water quantity and quality? And Matthew, if you would like to start, and then JP will go to you.
Absolutely. And I would have to admit, I need to definitely get a little more research on the water department and One Water. But one of the things that I would like to see discussed, and I would like to see hopefully a solution towards, is, this isn't just a problem in Winter Haven, this is a problem Florida wide, is our aquifer under Winter Haven. And it's our aquifer in our local area. It has been depleted down to, basically bare bones. And I would like to see solutions in order to hopefully, draw water back into the aquifer. So that way, there isn't big sinkholes opening up like the one that we seen at the Kmart here about, I think, a decade ago. We don't need any more of those in the city. And I want to see more discussion towards the aquifer.
JP, could you explain a little bit about what your perspective is on Winter Haven's strategy towards water sustainability?
We are in the process. Part of our budget is to bring our water system up to date. And by bring our water system up to date, will save us money because they'll be able to operate more efficiently. The water reuse program is also going to be redesigned and rebuilt, and we've got to work on the improvements. And it just has to be able to help with the Florida aquifer, and the more that we can do to utilize more efficiency will help the aquifer. And so we've got to move forward with that. And that's part of our initiative on the budget.
Thank you. I want to open up to some audience questions that were submitted, and a few were submitted in advance. So I'm going to ask these, and then they may lead to some other discussion. So one question, and this one is for you, Matthew. Let's see, I'm going to read this one. You speak on your campaign website about revitalizing downtown, and over the last 20 years, thanks to city investment, the formation of a community redevelopment agency, a massive amount of private investment that followed public investment, nonprofits such as Main Street Winter Haven and other community partners, the downtown core has been dramatically revitalized and is attracting businesses, investors at a higher rate than ever before. This person asks, I'm curious, as a commissioner, what do you intend to do to bring more jobs to downtown Winter Haven or Winter Haven as a whole? And what would you want to do to further revitalize downtown from a commissioner's perspective?
Absolutely. And, downtown is really important. It's the heart of our city. It's really where a lot of economic and governmental activities happen. I've stated before, downtown is important, and our city as a whole is also important. I want to see, more business openings and ribbon cuttings in the Florence Villa area, the Legoland area, and other areas in our city. I recently talked to a small business owner. He just opened last month here in the city. He said that in the previous city he was in, the application process and the process in order to start a business in his previous city, he said, which was about the same size as Winter Haven, he said it took less than a week. And whenever he came here, it has taken almost 3 weeks, and whenever you're a business owner, time is money. If you can't open, that's losing money for you, and that's a big problem. And he said that he would like to see the city really introduce and really the right word, would like to invest in its online space by making it available and as an option to sit there to submit applications online, to submit applications and pay for fees and whatnot online, so that way we can sit there and make it as fast and as efficient as possible. And one of the things that I want to sit there and do is, mimic our application after the Polk County application. I've already filled out that application and I'm still working on other things in order to open my business here in Winter Haven. But that was really simple. I like to make a joke that even in the DMV, the tax collectors, I was in and out in 30 minutes, and that must be a record.
Don't knock Joe Tedder. He's done some amazing work.
I like Joe. After this, I like Joe. But we need to mimic that. We don't need it to take 3 weeks in order to get a business online. We need it to take, in and out, a week ahead of time. We need this in our city. And I feel that if we can sit there and do that as a city, it would make it even more attractive for businesses to come in to our city.
So Commissioner Powell, same question for you in terms of, and not necessarily focused on the downtown, but on creating a competitive community in terms of attracting businesses and attracting jobs. So let's talk about economic development a little bit when it comes to the small business community. What do you believe are some ways that the city can improve that process?
We could definitely take a look to see what our process is. And I've not heard any or had any complaints at all from anybody trying to start a business about our the way we do our process. And it's not going to happen overnight. And there's certain ordinances you have to make sure that, number one, the business is qualified to be downtown regardless of what it is. But we want to make sure that we have everything's in place, safety and the right sort of resources.
So in one of the initiatives that the Chamber of Commerce has been working very closely with the city on is streamlining truly the department process. So we have not, we work with businesses all the time to help them navigate the process, which in most cases, and I'm not saying this person didn't have a challenge, is relatively smooth. However, there's always room for improvement in any business. Every business is always looking for different ways to improve, looking at new technology. I think one thing that we're very excited about is some new software systems and streamlining systems that the Community Investment and Economic Development Department is looking to roll out to really, take departments that have been a little bit of a silo and really have them all come together. So we've been very excited to watch that process come forward in order to streamline both the new business process or businesses that are looking for land use changes or development code changes or anything along those lines. One very exciting one, I've pushed this out to a lot of people, is a new GIS mapping system for people even looking. If I want to put my business in X location, I can click on that and I can find out what it's zoned for, what I'm allowed to do there. That's been an incredible improvement and investment to streamline that process for area businesses as well. So, but there's always room. I don't think any business can sit on their laurels. It's always about making sure that we're improving processes and using new technology when it comes to that. I do have two questions that have come in via the webinar. One is directed towards you, Matthew. And I believe this at C, has stated regarding code violations, quote, "Why do we punish homeowners in our city for doing as they please with the property that they own?" I think this is perhaps related to a comment, or perhaps it's on your website, about doing away with code violations. And this individual is asking, isn't that unfair to neighbors if you do away with the code violations and ordinances?
No, my campaign is not about getting rid of code violations. There are definitely issues. If a house is run down and it's dangerous, then there should definitely be a process to getting that home up to code. There are laws that have to be followed. What that specific quote is really regarding, and what I was stating it towards, is that If, a part of our code violations is also length of yard, fences, putbacks, things like that. I really do want to see the city really take advantage of multi-level housing. This will sit there and really bring cheap, affordable housing to the city. And if you do have a problem with a neighbor and whatnot, I would really like to see neighbor on neighbor engagement. And if a law has been broken, that definitely does need to be addressed. But first, I do want to see neighbors talking to each other about issues that they have.
Thank you. And I think too, with the areas that we've worked on, the city does have a special magistrate. So when code violations are put in, there's numerous opportunities for individuals to work with the community to plead their case as to why they're doing what they're doing, or opportunities to have fees and waived by going before the magistrate and showing that they've been able to come to a solution. So this question will be for both of you. This individual asking is a resident of the city and also is a partner at a engineering firm, BES Engineering, here in Winter Haven. It's a local small business and disadvantaged civil engineering firm that recently just completed a major expansion within the city and actually located in a property in downtown Winter Haven on Avenue D, and has been recruiting more and more employees to come to the area. What they're asking is about the selection process, so the procurement process on individual firms being awarded. And they're asking how businesses like his can get a fair chance to be awarded projects that are being put out for bid within the city of Winter Haven. Commissioner Powell, I'll start with you and then to Matthew.
Have him send an email to City Manager Mike Kerr, and Mike Kerr will send it over to the procurement division so they can get their name on the list, and so they can start moving forward with presenting bids and everything.
Mm-hmm. And how does that procurement process work? I know normally sometimes there's a commission liaison involved in the procurement process on that. Sometimes it's staff groups that are involved with that. But can you explain a little bit about how that procurement process works?
They go through the application process where they send out the information that is the project. They'll go through and they'll explain what the project is. And then the company will send back to the city. There's a list of qualifications, and they'll go through and they'll look at what they're willing to do and what they're going to be charging. And then there's a group that gets together and they go through all the bids. All the bids are sealed, and they open them up, and then they move forward and they select the correct or the best. And there's a point system, whether they're based in the city, whether they're office in the city, and so forth and so on. And they'll go through and will evaluate each and every bid proposal, and then the group will select through the qualifications on a point system as to which one they think would best suit the city.
Thank you. So Matthew, this question came in for you. You've said a couple times talking about the city of Winter Haven having one of the highest millage rates in the county. But for the benefit of the audience, we're actually the 8th lowest out of the 17 municipalities. And if you look at each of the millage code areas, which there are 26, we're 14th. So we're kind of middle of the pack when it comes to that. Can you explain a little bit about why you've used that language, or what your thought process is behind that?
Right. I've used that language because, we are middle of the pack in terms of straight data, but we are the second largest municipality in the county. Our neighbor Lakeland has a lower millage rate than we do. This has sat there and That's why I do use this language as one of the highest, because of the simple fact that, in terms of numbers, we might be the middle, but people are moving here in droves. And, if they're not moving to Lakeland, they're moving to Winter Haven. And that's really why I have used that language. And, the city of Lakeland just a couple of weeks ago sat there and lowered their millage rate. They did. And I don't see why the city of Winter Haven can't do that, at least sit there and do it to the rollback rate, because, it makes our city more attractive. So that's really why I have used that language. Middle of the pack, sure, but in terms of practicality, not really.
So Matthew, and I have to apologize. I didn't give you an opportunity to answer the question about the bid process, and our questionnaire wanted to make sure that I gave you that opportunity as well. So thank you, Justin, for reminding me. Matthew, go ahead. In terms of the bid process, and I don't know how familiar you are with that, but what are your thoughts on that process?
Absolutely. I believe, excuse me, I believe that process should be as fair and as blind as possible. In order to give all companies a fair shake. I don't believe the process should be waived in favor of one company over another. No matter how many times we've done business with that company, it should always be a fair shake. And as a commissioner and as someone who has worked in bidding processes before, I do believe that it should be as fair as possible.
So I'm going to give an opportunity. We're pushing the 9 o'clock hour, and certainly want to be conscious of everyone's time. So I want to give an opportunity for one last call for any questions from the audience. I haven't seen any others come in this morning, but I want to give an opportunity for both of our candidates to give a closing statement, to be able to talk about, anything that we've talked about this morning or your thoughts for the future. And hold on one second. I just had a comment come in. And this is just a question comment that came in. Lakeland also has an electric utility that funds a tremendous amount of their budget. To make it equal, Winter Haven would have to raise their water rates to fund the government. Are you in favor of that? And that question is for Matthew.
Absolutely not. Because you have a growing population of people, mostly in this pandemic, who's not able to pay their bills already. We raise that water rate, even more people won't be able to pay their bills. In order to sit there and defer or sit there and put off, the loss in income, Winter Haven just needs to do a better job of making it attractive and pulling people in. The more taxable income you have, the more it can offset that budget deficit.
So I want to make sure, because there's certain language like budget deficit, which may construe that we operate under a budget deficit. So just for the benefit of the audience, I want to make sure that we're used to hearing it at the federal level. Goodness knows, there's all sorts of issues at the federal level with that. But at the local level, statutorily, the city of Winter Haven is required to pass a balanced budget every year. There is no deficit in the city of Winter Haven budget. In fact, in the general fund, there's actually a policy within the city of Winter Haven that they are required to hold back at least 17% in unencumbered cash that allows for emergencies or if a storm comes through and things of that nature, because again, relying on the federal government, such as FEMA, they're still giving out money for a hurricane that happened 2 or 3 years ago. So you can't really rely on that. In fact, in this year's budget, about 30% of monies have been kept in an unencumbered status to allow for that. So I just think it's important to understand that statutorily, the city of Winter Haven has to pass a balanced budget. Every municipality has to pass a balanced budget. And that there is currently there's not deficit spending, if you will, to what people might understand from a federal level.
Absolutely. And, that wasn't my intent. By the deficit, I meant year over year, if we were to cut the millage rate down. That's was my intention of saying deficit.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that I clarified that statement. We all hear so much on the nightly news. I just want to make sure that people understand the government closest to the people, your municipal government is probably the best run out of all of the levels of government that you look towards. And it's always a good opportunity to educate people and get people engaged in the process, which is what's so wonderful about local government, is that there's so many committees and ways to get involved and really cut your teeth about being a part of the process. So with that, I want to give each of the candidates an opportunity to give their closing statements. And so Matthew, we will start with you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. And thank you for holding this today. I think it's massively important for people to hear from those who, want to serve them. Going back to my closing statement, we as Winter Haven and people of this city, I believe that the people of my city are smart, creative, resilient, and they know what's best for themselves and their future. I believe that the best way City Hall can help them is by getting out of the way. My campaign is fighting for one thing, and that's the preservation of your pursuit of happiness in the city of Winter Haven. And going back to what I'm going to be doing, that is, lowering taxes, controlled and lowering spending, and a term that I've used at the very beginning, job liberation, by making it as easy as possible for businesses to move and entrepreneurs within the city start their businesses. And I just want to sit there and ask for your vote, ask for your support here in this campaign coming up to the final weeks. I want to thank the citizens of Winter Haven for sitting there and joining me in this and coming up and talking to me whenever I'm out at markets with my tent and a bunch of my buttons and whatnot. I want to thank you for coming up to this young guy that's making this daring leap that no other person of my age would ever think about touching. I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for holding this and for being a very, very positive chamber and a very positive influence on the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. JP?
Since I've been on the city commission and all the years serving as mayor pro tem, serving as the mayor, you learn a lot and you hear a lot, and being able to listen to comments from our citizens regarding what's going on in Winter Haven, mostly are very positive, and they like to see, they like what's going on. Usually when you have an election, in the past, you may have 3 or 4 people running for one seat, and it tells you that somebody's not happy. But with only having Matthew as running for the city commission, we must be doing something right. Plus, City Hall is not overly, when we have our commission meetings, City Hall is not jam-packed full of people complaining. And the thing that I have learned that, and especially now when we receive a complaint, it's acted on immediately. And if it's not, we need to know about it. We have staff that's concerned. They want to continue to make Winter Haven the great place it is and continue to see the growth. Are we perfect? No, by no means are we perfect. But and you have to be willing to make the decisions that sometimes they're not popular decisions. And you have to be able to make the decisions that sometimes are very unpopular. And since serving on the city commission since 2007 and taking the 2 years from 2015 to 2017, the last 2 years, we have come a long way. And I see us to continue to move forward and to make Winter Haven again a great place to live, work, play, and learn. We have to remember we have Polk State College and our school system too, and we have a lot of great citizens. And one of the things that I want to continue to see Winter Haven move forward. And Katie, again, thank you to you and the chamber for hosting this morning. And it's always a pleasure to be able to serve the citizens of Winter Haven. Thank you.
Thank you both. And it does speak very highly of our community, that there's a level of immense positivity around the city commission election, right? That there is just a lot of good things going on. More so, and I've been in this role for about 8 years, to be able to see so many areas of the community coming together for common goals, to see the positivity, the investment across all areas of our cities, to see citizens that live in all areas of our city becoming so actively engaged in the collaboration that is happening. You know, I started my morning this morning with a text message from my sister-in-law who lives in Honolulu, Hawaii. And it was, Winter Haven was on the news. And it was the local news in Honolulu, Hawaii, talking about the Peppa Pig theme park opening in Winter Haven, Florida, which, I mean, people are crazy about Peppa Pig. You never knew it. But to be able to have the world really recognize from Europe to all areas of the United States, to many different countries, be able to recognize the name Winter Haven, to be able to see that as a destination, as a great place to live, work, and play. There's only positive things and great things that can be coming forward. And so again, I want to thank both of you, Matthew and JP, for being willing to come on to do this forum this morning, for being willing to raise your hand to serve the people of this community. I want to remind everyone on the call that the election is on November 2nd. Be sure to check in with the Supervisor of Elections website so that you're aware of all of the dates for absentee ballots, for early voting, for commission, for the day of voting, and making sure you're checking at which precinct that you'll be set to vote on that day to make sure that you are all set. So, you know, Winter Haven is a city on the move, and we are so fortunate to have so many citizens interested and engaged in being a part of it. So again, thank you so much this morning, gentlemen. And to all of you that were signing on or are watching this afterwards, thank you very much for being engaged.